Welcome back to Film in Focus. We are back after a week off in a new and, well, not exactly improved, cramped studio, but Ray Turner is back. He's been beamed aboard once again, the Star Trek
Starship.
Yeah, Starship, sorry, I can barely get it out, Beyond Radio. He's had all his vaccinations and he's back on board with the team. Welcome back, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up.
The last two
No
shows that you
problem.
did.
No problem.
But I had great notes, didn't I?
You did. Very insightful. I had fun reading them. Almost as much fun as you had producing them.
Yeah, right.
So, because we're sort of a week behind now, me and Ray, we're going to try and cram in a few extra films this week. So we're into the top 20. We, of course, welcome your interactions. If you have any thoughts on the... on our list and you want to give your own list,
please
as always.
Thoughts.
Yeah, please get involved. We want your list as well. It really adds to
them.
the show.
There's not enough thoughts in this room.
But we're into the top 20, and I think certainly this week there should be some interesting talking points. So do you want to go first or should I?
I'll go first then. So my number 20,
yeah,
it's a 1970s science fiction film directed by George Lucas.
Okay.
And it is, of course, THX1. No, it's not. It's Star Wars, of course. I've already done
the other one, yeah. That other film he
that
did.
Other film he did. The lesser-known film. Star Wars, yes. So, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's a film that it really did kind of change my life when I saw it.
Yeah.
I was just the right age for it. I was 9 years old. It was the first film I saw in the West End. I saw it at the Dominion, Tom Court Road, which I think is the biggest screen in England. I actually Googled this, and it was a bit inconclusive. But so enormous screen. Just this amazing film, and it absolutely blew me away, and I got completely carried away, and sort of I went and bought the album, and I remember buying puzzles and
great music,
cards and everything.
Yeah.
And you know, and it was just one of these sort of films that just I bored everyone stupid by loving it so completely much and everything, and just sort of. But then, you know, because we are talking about trilogies and what is it now, a nineology? I don't know.
Yeah,
what do you call it?
3 different trilogies at
three
this
different
point,
trilogies.
isn't there?
So
New one
I'm talking about the
today.
original 3. So I went to see Empire, which most people consider the best.
Yeah.
And I just didn't like it. I just remember kind of being I was about 11, I think.
Yeah.
I was conscious of being bored, which is quite weird. And then I didn't even bother to go and see Return of the Jedi because and The Shine had gone off.
Which
Star
I
Wars.
think is the weakest of that original trilogy.
Yeah, probably
the third one.
But then again,
Still has its
I watched them
moments,
again because we did the show, you know, and you got me on a few months ago.
Yeah.
I watched them again, and actually, I then really enjoyed them, and I started to enjoy Star Wars again, and I enjoyed Empire Strikes Back, and I enjoyed Return of the Jedi, to be honest. But one thing that really struck me over the years, I think, is just sort of how clunky a director George Lucas is. He's really not very good. He's just got no style to him. It's just kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's like TV. It's like he's directing a soap opera.
Yeah, I think we both hit on this. I think it feels like he's more of a producer. It feels more like he just struck on gold. And I mean, there's notorious stories about how he was helped on set with the direction. And
oh, really?
just then it all came into place. Sometimes lightning does strike in a bottle like that. You know, you had obviously the cool elements of like the really good casting and stuff, and the effects obviously stand up pretty well to this day, and it's a really effective, you know, three-act
and I mean,
sort
you know,
of story.
And, you know, and obviously kids are now loving it as well, so there's obviously something about it that stands up. And you know, I've kind of gone away and come back to it, but I'm still not loving the new ones. I haven't seen. I understand you saw the new ones.
I saw it today.
I
might do a review on the future show.
Yeah.
Obviously we're sort of.
But
yeah, I'll take that opportunity actually to plug Ian Clementine's show tonight because he's a massive Star Wars fan. I'm assuming he's probably seen the film already, the new one. I wouldn't be surprised if he went to one of those midnight triple bills, you know, with the whole trilogy, the whole new trilogy. But he has a special Star Wars show tonight on Beyond Radio, which will be 10:30, his normal slot, and he'll be dishing the whole dirt on the whole trilogy and
playing the music as well.
I'm guessing he will because it's a music sort of theme show. So really worth listening to. I'll try and catch some of it at least. But that's coming up later here on Beyond Radio, about 10:30. Yeah, Ian Clementine, massive Star Wars fan. So that's worth listening to later on. So my number 20, and this is going to be a bit controversial as far as the placing goes. It's another big sci-fi name, and it is Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. The Final Cut, which came out in 2007. So it's number 20, so obviously I like it a fair bit, otherwise it wouldn't be as high as 20. This beautiful, distinct visual universe, amazing music, great world building, just the depth of the visuals and the design. Obviously, in many ways ahead of its time in terms of the vision. There's some interesting themes in there. The ending is really provocative and interesting, plays with a lot of ideas. And, you know, you've got a pretty decent cast in there. Obviously, Rutger Hauer on top for me as a really great line at the end. I mean, it is improved in the final cut and director's cut as well. But I do find it a bit overrated. I don't agree it's a masterpiece. I do find bits of it leave me cold. For example, the love story with Deckard and Rachel. I don't find that convincing. I think some of the looks, some of the costumes, like, for example, Dara Hannah and her, like, Susie and the Banshees, like, knockoff outfit. And you've got the whole, like, Alice in Wonderland type stuff. It just looks a bit too cheesy to me. And I think the other problem with the Daryl Hannah look is just the fact that it's meant to be futuristic. Obviously, we're now in the year which the film is representing. And the problem is it's sort of just torn out of the look of 1982, if you like. So if you're doing a futuristic film, it doesn't actually... I mean, I guess people still dress like that up to a point, but, you know, it's not realistic that they would still have that sort of look all those years later.
I'm
but
it
just looks goofy.
I wonder if it's one of these films that if you saw it when it came out, which I did, it has a more of an impact, because I remember watching it at university in the 90s. Actually, about the time the director's cut came out, just before, I think, the director's cut came out. As a class, we all watched this film, you know, for one reason or another. And so we were very much like half the people there had seen it and half the people hadn't. And and I remember everyone who had seen it when it came out was kind of going, oh, well, you've got to see this. It's amazing. It's incredible. And everyone that saw it for the first time in the early 90s sort of went, I didn't really get what the fuss was about.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of these films, it was just copied so much. It was so influential. It was copied such a lot that actually it started to look slightly kind of dated.
Yeah.
Dated is the wrong word, but it just... It's like the ideas in it weren't original by the 90s because they've been done so many times. But it was kind of one of the first films that did it. And it was one of the things that I think was really amazing about it was the first film that made the future look old.
Yeah.
And he didn't, and he kind of, and I think this thing we were saying about fashion, I think it's quite interesting because a lot of the fashion was very reminiscent of like 40s. You can tell I quite like this film.
Yeah.
Perhaps I shouldn't say too much because it's possible it will come up.
Yeah, that's fair. So we can have and I mean, obviously there's people who still argue against it now and people who are more down on it than me. I mean, I'm not that down on it. I think the whole world building and the style carries it a long way. I just think the script is a bit hit and miss, personally. Some things work in it better than others. So I sort of fall on it being a good 8 out of 10 rather than like a 9.
I can tell you as a teenage boy, the love stuff between Deckard and Rachel was completely convincing.
Worked
I
really
was completely in love with
Okay. There you go. Okay, so that's my number 20, your number 19.
My number 19 is Terminator 2.
Ooh.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton. James Cameron.
Fantastic as always.
Let me try and say this. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Robert Patrick, and various other people.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the few examples where the sequel is better than the original. It's also one of the... Maybe. I can understand why you might not agree. But I think it's also an example of when more money actually made a better film. It was like the original didn't have enough money and this one did. The special effects are amazing, and it was one of the first films I remember seeing that had extensive use of CGI. I mean, obviously The Abyss had done it, but The Abyss wasn't a very good film. I think it was all right, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it up there with his best films. No.
And the CGI was sort of minimal. And with this, you actually had this entire character that was kind of pretty major to the film. You know?
Yeah,
and
it's incredible.
And he was CGI, and actually as a result, he was far scarier than the Terminator in the first film. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought the action scenes were better. It was just bigger. It was bigger explosions, and it was more exciting. And it's just that, isn't it? It's just a really, really good action film. And the fact that it's sci-fi was a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does what a good sequel should do, which is expand and take the themes of the era.
Yeah.
And that whole thing about twisting Arnie's role about and making him actually the good is genius. It works brilliantly.
Unfortunately, they revealed. I mean, we've just revealed it to anyone who hasn't seen it, but
they
revealed it in the advert. So everyone who went, the first 20 minutes or so of the film, you're supposed to think he's the bad guy.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, almost everybody missed that because it was in the advert. That Arnie was the good guy in this one, which is a bit of a shame. But so that's my number 19.
Okay, good choice. My number 19, and this is something which appeared on my comedy list, and I played a track from the soundtrack a few moments ago, Ghostbusters 1984, because it's Ghostbusters. I don't need to say much more. Great cast, great characters, wonderful chemistry between the leads. The jokes are fantastic, iconic lines. Really decent effects, actually, some which still hold up pretty well today. But the ones that don't, it doesn't really matter because it's part of the fun, like, monster sort of prestige. Mm-hmm. The ending and build-up might be one of my favourite of any movie. You know, the whole, I love this town line, and the whole, them chanting Ghostbusters. It just gets the blood pumping every time.
I didn't think of it as a science fiction
film.
It's
so feel-good.
I suppose it is.
Yeah, I think it counts.
It's got gadgets, isn't it? I'll have to rethink.
And the music is awesome, great
that was a film I absolutely loved.
Really good music.
At the time, I remember. And Sigourney Weaver's amazing.
She's great, yeah, amazing. So Ghostbusters, the original, my 19.
Actually, was it Annie? Is it Annie Potts? The she's brilliant.
So the casting all the way down is really, really good. Yeah.
And it is great.
Okay, carry on.
My number 18 is Inception, which is Christopher Nolan, 2010.
Good choice.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy, Ellen Page, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Okay.
Various other people.
Yeah.
So what I've said is it's confusing and dumb, but really good fun. It's like a little poem. I mean, it is kind of stupid. It isn't half as smart as I think it thinks it is.
Yeah, I can see that argument. Yeah. But
it's just a lot of fun. And so the premise, if people haven't seen it, is people enter other people's dreams and steal secrets.
Yeah.
And Leonardo, and they're specialists, and Leonardo DiCaprio is a specialist. What's he called? A dream enterer.
I'm not sure the exact term.
Yeah, he does have a name, but and so half the film, but they're not dreams in the kind of sense of like a David Lynch film. They look like real life, don't they?
Yeah.
There's just little things that happen that make you realise it's not. So actually, you're never quite sure if this is a dream or this is reality. And actually, the characters in the film aren't sure. This seems to be one of the things of the film. The people in the film actually spend so much time in other people's dreams, they're not actually sure whether they're in a dream or whether they're in reality.
Yeah.
And actually, you leave the film not really quite knowing if the ending is a dream or not. And I was really lucky when I saw it. It was actually it was near Christmas time. And, so I saw it at the cinema, and then I had loads of Christmas cards to deliver. So I was just walking around people's houses delivering for about an hour after I saw the film. And it just gave me time to go away and think about it. And I think I sort of worked it out and thought, oh, yeah, no, I've got it. It's whether it's a dream or not. And this is what, this happened to that guy. And, so I think I kind of went away and worked it out, which is, I think, a good thing to do. It's like see the film and then spend a bit of time.
Yeah, I think as long as the film's allowing you that space to work it out yourself.
Well, I mean, it does in the film. It's too high octane.
Yeah.
But again, it's like a bit like Terminator. It's just fantastic action sequences and and stuff, and really good special effects, and really, really nice the way there's that you've got I think 4 dreams all linked into each other at the end, and so things that are happening in one dream is kind of affecting what's happening in another dream. So they're in a hotel and it's kind of gravity's going all strange and things like that.
Okay, we'll pause for an email because this is your show. Hi, it's Is that Famina? Famir. Here, what do you think is the best sci-fi movie that contains actual science? Ooh.
That's really... Surely they all contain some element of actual science, don't they?
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously, technically, something like Star Wars goes into more science sort of fantasy, but there is obviously science involved. I mean, like in any other.
I think on my list, the film that I've got at number 1 contains actual science. Quite a lot of it.
So maybe we'll wait till
really, you'll have to come back next week, Fabio.
Yeah, there will be certainly. I think maybe. He or her, sorry, not sure which is maybe hinting at
There's a film I've got coming up, actually, which I think you have done. Actually, I think when I was not here,
where science is quite a big factor.
Yeah, and it's actually so. Keep listening. My number 16 choice, which is coming up in a few, which I think contains actual science, or certainly something that I think is potentially could happen.
Okay.
I don't think it can happen yet, but that's science fiction, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you're right,
so
but certainly I think 18, I know the one. 18, and then we might have to take a quick break just to pick. Okay, The Man Who Fell to Earth is my number 18 from 1976. So I got the numbers the wrong way. So cult classic from Nicholas Roeg, sci-fi based on Walter Travis's novel of the same name. David Bowie, of course, in the role he was born to play, The Man Who Fell to Earth. It plays James Jerome Newton.
Thomas Jerome Newton.
Oh, is it Thomas? I must have taken... sorry about that. I'm sure you know.
I wrote my dissertation at
university. So you're not going to screw up on that, are you? So an alien who takes human form appears, crash lands in New Mexico in particular, the location. And he's basically on Earth to get water for his family because there's a drought back home. And throughout the film, we get little, images of his family suffering back home. And Newton uses advanced technology from his own planet to become the head of a tech company. So a lot of the film is based in New Mexico at this hotel, where he strikes up a relationship with a maid working at the hotel. So it becomes a bit of a character study between the two of them. Really good character actor in Rip Torn. The late Rip Torn appears.
Died last year,
yes, sadly. Candy Clark is brilliant as well as Mary Lou. Really touching relationship. A film which wasn't that well liked at the time, but it has grown into a bit of a cult favourite now.
Yeah, I can see why it wasn't well liked.
Yeah.
It's a very strange film.
It's a very strange and hard watch.
Also,
you need a couple of 2 or 3 goes.
Because for one reason or another, I was thinking about this film, and
I
thought what's interesting about it is obviously when rock stars had made films in the past, people like the Beatles had made films, or Elvis,
Mick Jagger,
which obviously Mick Jagger was a little bit different, but
yeah.
But I mean, David Essex made kind of That'll Be the Day and something, and what those films were, they were kind of built around that person's persona, the Beatles as a band. Okay. And in the 70s, you had Slade were doing films. And,
of course, yeah.
I
know Mark Kermode raves about the Slade film.
Oh, really?
Slade in Flames or something.
And Madness did one. But the thing about this was it wasn't a film built around David Bowie. It was more they made a film and they cast David Bowie in it.
Yeah.
And that I think was quite new. I don't think, and it's been done since. Art Garfunkel. Well, actually, I think it was before Art Garfunkel was in Catch-22.
Oh yeah.
And obviously Harry Styles in Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake and The Social Network and things like that.
Okay.
So they're not films where you kind of go, oh, it's a Justin Timberlake movie. He's going to be a rock star and it's going to be about that. And this was the same, really. And I think it was that was unusual. But also, it's just a very strange film. You've got
it really is.
Really strange, which I'll talk about maybe later.
Yeah, it's very trippy, psychedelic, character-driven. Obviously, really fascinating themes on consumerism, isolation, language, which are a lot of the core sci-fi. Has its own unique style.
One of the only films I can think of where an alien comes to Earth and kind of sets up a corporation and becomes a billionaire and...
Yeah, it's a very different way to do that story.
It's not like I'm going to invade the Earth. It's like I have this advanced technology, therefore I'm going to, knock out all these major companies, become Mark Zuckerberg. Okay. That's it. Mark Zuckerberg is in fact David Bowie and the Man Who Fell to
It's a fascinating film, kind of heartbreaking. And actually, I went to see the 2016 stage musical, the sequel to it, Lazarus.
I didn't know
it's
that.
great.
I
They
didn't know
use
that even
they use
existed.
Bowie's songs. It's brilliant.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. But that's The Man Who Fell to Earth, my 18, and Ray's on to number 17.
Okay, so my number 17 is The Quatermass Experiment. It's Val
Good
Guest,
choice.
1955.
Very good.
Brian Donlevy, Jack Warner, Margia Dean, Richard Wordsworth, who is related to William Wordsworth, I understand. So there's a local connection. And Nigel Neal is from the Isle of Man, or lives on the Isle of Man. So there's a local connection there. And Thora Hird is also in it. So there's lots of local connections. I thought that was a good thing to... But I actually saw this for the first time. It was one of those... I don't know if you remember this, but there was Friday nights, about 11 o'clock, there'd be horror movies on telly.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
I'd always go to bed and watch them in bed. And that's how I saw this film for the first time. And it scared the hell out of me. It was just terrifying.
Yeah, it is pretty creepy.
Because I don't know if you've had it on your...
I had it earlier, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't hear what you came up with last time.
I think it was the first week, but...
You had Quatermass in the Pit, didn't you?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Which I've never seen,
yeah,
actually.
yeah,
But I didn't know if you've done the Quatermass experiment.
No, I
so this is the first one, and it's just got this image, this man. So Quatermass sends a rocket into space with 3 astronauts in it. When they come back, 2 of them are missing. One of them is in some weird sort of shell shock. They put him in hospital, and he's attracted to plants for some obscure reason. And he grabs hold of a cactus, and it kind of assimilates into his arm, and he goes on the run. And gradually he starts turning into a kind of giant cactus, which sounds a bit ludicrous, and is, but I don't know. It's so creepy because the guy just plays it, and he's just got this arm with this kind of cactus growing out of it. It is just terrifying, and it's all shot in this kind of black and white, and then it's kind of intercut with Jack Warner, who's kind of doing his kind of Dot Green type thing. And he's always shaving.
Wow.
Every scene he's in, he's shaving. Really weird. I think I'm trying to show how busy he is because he never quite finishes.
Never
so he always has to
stops,
give up
yeah.
shaving halfway through.
Very good.
And, you know, I was saying that Brian Donlevy isn't the best actor in the world. And it's all a bit British. Ooh, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
But, you know, that's kind of to its advantage, I think. It is just brilliant. It's brilliant and terrifying.
Okay. So on to my number 17, and the second appearance from the Star Trek movie on this list. A couple of weeks ago I had The Voyage Home, which was part 4. This time I've gone with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan from 1982. I think considered by many to be the best of the Star Trek movies. So you have everything you want from a classic Trek adventure and a good example of how to do a really good sequel. One of the things lacking, in my opinion, from the original Trek was a great villain, and that problem is fixed with Ricardo Montalban as the title character. He is camp, but with a sly presence, really delivers the lines with a lot of menace, and Khan's fashion sense alone is terrifying. It would strike fear into any Starfleet commander. And I thought it was a really cool touch to bring back a character from an episode of the TV show. It really, you know, merged the TV universe with the films nicely. He's really good in it. And the film's very knowing, it's witty, it's obviously fun and camp like the Star Trek of the time. That is the era for sci-fi. Really well-crafted plot, lots of character-driven scenes, good effects, some fun action, and crucial, it's all about the mission and the characters. The sting in the tail as well at the end, involving a certain crew member, and some of you might know what I mean, some of you might not know. But at the time, that would have been a real shock for a mainstream Star Trek film. Probably the music's not as good as Jerry Goldsmith's original score. You've got James Horner doing the music this time. That's my only slight nitpick because that original soundtrack was so good. I've played it on the show. But I really like Wrath of Khan. I think it's really up there for a Star Trek film. So that's my number 17.
Right, okay. So my number 16, and this is the one that I think involves real science, and it's Gattaca, which is Andrew Niccol film from 1997. So Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, Jude Law, Alan Arkin.
Yeah.
And Andrew Niccol wrote The Truman Show and The Terminal, which was directed by Steven Spielberg.
Love Truman Show.
And you picked this already, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple of weeks, yeah.
So what I think is it's just one of those films that everybody who's seen it really loves it, but it just isn't that well known. It doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, it's very underrated. It didn't do great at the box office at the time.
Did it not?
No, it was
got a fantastic score by Michael Nyman.
Yeah,
which who I love a lot. So the basic premise is that children are genetically sort of selected, or they're conceived via genetic selection to be as healthy and strong and free from disease as possible. But every now and again, they're not, and they're called faith births. And so this follows Vincent, who's a faith birth. And these people are kind of discriminated against. And he sort of makes some point in the film. At some point, he says, you used to have discrimination. It used to be down to, personal choice or something. And he said, we now have discrimination down to a science. And I just thought it was a really poignant line in the film. So I thought it was really clever and thought-provoking, but it's also kind of really exciting, and it's just and you really care about the characters.
Yeah.
And just
the
kind of
noir style and plot is really effective.
And actually, in 1997, it was one of the first films I can think of that kind of broke away from that kind of Blade Runner look, actually, where the future wasn't shabby and sort of run down.
Yeah.
It actually was gleaming, and it was kind of going back to a kind of 50s vision of sci-fi, but with a kind of 90s nod and 90s sensibility, and it kind of really worked well.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we have a little bit, because Ray's had this one already and not too long ago, but here we go. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So the first appearance of a Terminator film on my list. I said a lot of the good stuff, as did Ray. Really great sequel. Cameron seems to know how to do them. I had Aliens on my list last week. Casting really good, reversing the Arnie stuff. The relationship with him and Edward Furlong's John Connor is both funny and touching. I like the growth of Linda Hamilton from the first film on fine form once again as this fully formed and smart sort of badass.
It's fantastic, actually, that she appears as a badass.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's gone from being this cutesy.
Yeah, but she grows. That's the point. I mean, in that first film alone, she has a really good arc, and the relationship.
But there's a
it's a
leap,
distinct
isn't
difference. Yeah, she's
anyway,
more
so
seasoned. No, it's fine. It's a good point. And Robert Patrick, I think, is a chilling presence as the evil Terminator. Great. That liquid shape-shifting effects. We were saying earlier, it's ahead of its time. No matter what you say about Cameron, and I have my issues with him, I think he was a visual director, or is, when it comes to being ahead of the game on things like technology and stuff like this.
I mean, with Avatar, even.
And I mean, we were talking about, even though it's a mediocre film at best.
He's doing a lot of sequels.
He really is. That's scary. But yeah, the action scenes are amazing, as we said. Like one of the ones that stand out is that spectacular motorcycle chase and shootout. That is jaw-dropping the way he directs that. Fantastic. So Terminator 2, a really good sequel at number 16.
So my number 15 is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So it's Steven Spielberg from 1977. Richard Dreyfuss, Terry Garr, Melinda Dillon, Francois Truffaut, the great Francois Truffaut in it.
Great.
So yeah, I mean, I think the two things about this film, the music is it's completely iconic, isn't it? That makes you think of Aliens, and I think it was kind of the film that invented the way we think aliens look. That kind of bubble-headed thing with big eyes. That's kind of now all aliens look like that.
Could be, yeah.
And I think that was maybe the first film that did it. But actually, it's a very human film. It's not really a film about aliens, really. It's about the effects, I think, of believing in aliens and how that sort of suddenly appearing in your life.
Yeah.
The effects that has on your marriage, the effects that has on your he loses his job, he loses his wife, he loses everything.
Yeah.
Because he believes this thing, and I don't know. I think Kevin Costner referenced it when he made JFK. He said, that for him there was this moment when it was like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters, that he had this moment where he suddenly realised something that nobody else realised, and he realised he used the F word, but he said his life was ruined, from then on, and that was the same. He said the same with Jim Garrison. So. Yeah, I mean, I think it's about that, and Richard Dreyfuss, just you care about him. It's great, and Spielberg just does that kind of stuff great, doesn't he? And that scene at the table when he's making the kids are playing around, he's doing the mashed potato, and they all start crying, and it's just really moving. It's just a very moving film, I think. And they did kind of ruin it a bit with this kind of awful second version where they added this sort of awful ending, but they got rid of it. They've got rid of that again now.
Right.
And they've combined the two. And the one thing I just want to say about it is I think it just has one of the most stunning opening scenes in the desert. It's one of these brilliant scenes where you can't really hear what anyone's saying and you can't see because there's dust everywhere. And it's just one of those kind of, this is what movies should be like, I think.
Yeah. Good shout. So that's your number 15, right? Yep. So my number 15, I brought this up on another similar list type show. So it was in when we did our top 10 of the 21st century. So I've mentioned this before. It is Joss Whedon's space western Serenity from 2005. Basically, a fitting conclusion to Whedon's series Firefly, which was cruelly axed before its prime, just had one season. So he had this fantastically difficult task to come up with this film which both would appeal to fans who didn't see that series, but also to, importantly, fans who seen it and love it, and had to give a fitting conclusion in one film. He did an incredibly good job. It's a film full of heart, great characters, well cast, impressive action, great effects, unexpected twists and turns. It does go to some dark places. It really keeps you on the edge of a seat. I love Serenity a lot, and just the job he did, such a tricky job, and I think it ticked all the boxes. So Serenity is my number 15.
Okay, so my number 14 is Stalker by the late and extraordinarily great Andrei Tarkovsky from 1979. And there's a bunch of Russian people in it whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce. So, I mean, this is a film... I mean, the thing about Tarkovsky is I don't think the film is really about the story. And to some extent, is it really about anything at all other than sort of symbolic meanings and sort of beautiful imagery? But actually, it's so beautiful that it's kind of enough. And really you sort of feel your way through the story. It's not... And I was kind of thinking about it, and I thought it's kind of, and this is a slightly weird analogy, but it's a bit like when you listen to someone like Karen Carpenter. You're sort of going, I shouldn't.
Oh, well, I never expected that.
I shouldn't like
on
this
the show tonight,
but I love it. It's beautiful. It's just kind of you can't describe it. It's not it shouldn't work, but it does. It's just so beautiful that you're kind of slightly seduced by it, and I find that with Andrei Tarkovsky with all his films. As Stalker has a slightly special place in my heart because it's the one film of his I've managed to get my wife to go and see, although she fell asleep.
Oh dear!
It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone.
It's not easy to watch on DVD. It's definitely a film I think you need to see
at the cinema. More immersive.
And just because the imagery is so beautiful,
I agree.
And just stunning. And I could tell you the plot, but honestly, it's
very tricky.
But it does manage to get some tension. It does manage to be quite exciting at times. And which is not what you expect from Andrei Tarkovsky, but actually every now and again, it's like these people can do this, and actually some of it is really genuinely very creepy.
Okay.
So
great choice. And we have another email. I had Solaris, by the way, recently as well. Another Tarkovsky.
Wow.
That may come up on yours.
It may come up again. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got an email. Do you guys think sci-fi movies making the future too different from today takes away from the experience because it gets to a point where it's just comedic? Not sure who that's from. There's no name from it, but that's a question.
That's an interesting question.
It is, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example. Something like Dune is so removed from our experience. And Star Wars, I suppose. And Dune does have moments where it kind of feels slightly comedic, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean... I know Dune is more 80s, but like I was saying earlier with the early Star Trek, I think you just accept it. The most sci-fi at the time was camp. That was kind of the style.
Yeah, I mean something like Planet of the Apes, maybe. Yeah. That's a film where but I don't think that's comedic. I think that worked for me. It worked. Don't know.
Yeah, I mean Again, it's about context and the time. I think a lot of people watching it today, if they didn't see it at the time, they might see it as a bit more cheesy. So I can understand.
Oh, maybe.
But
I can understand
it's
that.
It's about context, really.
Maybe.
But it's sci-fi is so broad and does many different things. So I think that's part of it, really. So my number 14, a more mainstream pick, and it's something that came up on Ray's list recently, and it is The Matrix from 1999, 20 years old. Redefined the game as a smart and beautiful looking sci-fi blockbuster. Keanu Reeves is a Zen nerd who is responsible for saving the world. Perfect casting, right? He looks the part too, and he's at his physical peak, performing unbelievable stunts. Yes, he did his own stunts, including walking up walls, flipping over backward, landing on his feet, that sort of stuff. It looks mind-blowing. Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie-Anne Moss had some depth to the casting and the drama. Takes some cues from Cyberpunk, but again raises the bar for the universe building and effects. And the sequels weren't needed, but this original holds up as a classic. A good example of how to do a brainy blockbuster. Yeah. That is mind-blowing. The Matrix, 14. So Ray's number 13.
It's Alien, Ridley Scott from 1979. Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, John Hurt, and Ian Holm. So very tense, very claustrophobic. I mean, it was kind of an antidote to Star Wars, really, wasn't it? It was the antithesis. And just very, very atmospheric, very
claustrophobic,
scary. Brilliant design by H.R. Geiger, is it Giger?
I think it's Giger.
Yeah. He's Swiss, is he? Swiss graphic designer or something, and he designed the Alien, and it just looks organic, and the spaceship, the whole alien landscape that they go to just looks very alien. It just doesn't look of this Earth.
Yeah.
And you kind of get this sense when you're watching it that they're kind of inside a giant animal, don't you? That sort of how there seems to be these kind of tubes and things that just feel like kind of bits of body parts hanging around.
Great design.
And very dark, and and it doesn't always make sense. It's like apparently there's a room in the spaceship where it just drips water. For no apparent reason, but
But you're swept up in it. You're really
absolutely.
gripped, and the ending works so well.
The ending's fantastic. And Sigourney Weaver's
amazing,
kick-ass.
She's great. Yeah, that's sort of the role, isn't it? That really put her on the map, and she's incredible in it. So that's Alien, a big hitter there. And my number 13, from a different time, a different era. This will be much higher on yours as well. Metropolis from 1927. Visual Fritz Lang silent era film. Hard to sum up really, but part of the German Expressionism movement, which I'll cover on a future episode. It influenced really everything from Star Wars to Blade Runner and the 1980s Flash Gordon movie. I think one thing I'll say is it sort of feels like a Hollywood epic before they even existed. The story is multi-layered. It really experiments because it sort of splits it into acts like a play. I mean, that was really mind-blowing and impressive. The set design and the outrageous costumes are just eye-catching and really rich and beautiful. And they were ahead of their times.
It's a beautiful film to look at.
Amazing how
Maria,
they came up with it.
Robot. It's just, a beautiful piece of design.
It really is. And it's sort of film, it's this odyssey, it's like this test of endurance, it's mind-blowing, it's draining, it's like this odyssey, and it should be a shambles, but somehow it works perfectly. It just all comes together, and just the themes were ahead of their times in terms of the themes of modernity, so it really shows you what a visionary film
I mean, I suppose that sort of thing was kind of in the air, wasn't it? You had sort of Eisenstein and Chaplin doing things like Modern Times and stuff.
I guess, but this is a very different way to sort of do that.
I mean, just a beautiful, beautiful film. Yeah. So my number 12, we've had already, is The Man Who Fell to Earth. Nick Rogue, 1976. Nice. David Bowie, Candy Clark, Rip Torn, Buck Henry. I think we've said most of, I just wanted to say that I think one of the things I kind of didn't say earlier is when you watch it, one of the things that's really interesting, nothing to do with the sci-fi really, but just a really interesting way to tell the story. It's like you don't always get all the scenes that you would normally get in a film. Things just sort of happen, and you have to kind of connect the dots kind of afterwards and go, so that guy earlier, he was saying that thing, and then that guy got killed, and it was, and then they met with the guy that killed him, and right, so they planned the murder, and I didn't kind of, but it wasn't explained, and there's just a lot of that sort of thing all the way through, and even. I mean, we've given it away really that David Bowie is an alien, but it's not kind of, it's never actually explained. It's just sort of revealed in little bits, and by the time it's kind of properly revealed, you've kind of got it. You will have realised Probably. I don't know. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But I think you probably would have realised because it's sort of you've been given enough information, and the whole film is working in the way that you've just got to kind of keep going. What sort of happened? But yeah, I mean, just an incredibly different way of approaching. Well, what is it he's trying to do? It's not world domination. He's trying to steal water. Steal water. He's trying to take water.
I think it's very ambiguous, which is part of the power of the film. It makes you sort of...
You don't really know the ending. I mean, you kind of know what's happened, but it's actually, you really have to work out why, and I'm not sure you can.
Yeah, I think he's just used as like this figure for all these other like critiques and satires and ideas of the time and themes. So yeah. Okay, number 12. So I mean, actually, we might be on course to get up to 11 at least, which is probably
we're not going to do.
We would have done tonight. At least. No, but I said trilogies could count, and so this is and something you mentioned a bit earlier. So I've gone with the modern Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Oh, I love them.
They're amazing. 2011, 2014, 2017. And yeah, I think it's a great example of the way to update an older sort of franchise and just do something different and actually overall improve on them. I think they are. No, they are. I mean, the original Planet of the Apes, you could argue, but the rest aren't that great from the original franchise. But anyway, in my opinion, the standard is higher.
I'll let you have that.
Yeah, but they're just mind-blowing films. I will pick out one especially, and that is Dawn. And I've got a profound cinematic memory of Dawn because I saw it at the time it came out. And it just gripped me emotionally. I was sort of weeping at apes. I mean, that's what the film did to me. Great, obviously, effects. Really good cast. You know, Kerry Russell, who I mentioned once upon a time in TV because she's in this great show called The Americans, this Cold War spy show. Amazing. And she's actually in the new Star Wars in a small part, but she's a great actress. She's in there. Jason Clarke in one of his better roles, and also Gary Oldman on Great Sinister Form. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those films. It felt a bit like the Nolan Batman, where it was kind of this cross between blockbuster and art house. It was like this really intelligent, slow-burning character drama, but with a Planet of the Apes movie. And it blew me away. I couldn't believe how good that film was. I mean, I like the whole trilogy. I think War of the Planet of the Apes paid it off beautifully. But yeah, Dawn is my pick.
Dawn is my favourite, yeah.
It's fantastic. Love that trilogy.
Yeah, I agree. Very smart. And I mean, what I kind of liked was that it did tie back to the original Charlton Heston one. You know, it didn't sort of, you know... And they had to sort of make it work. And obviously things that we cared about then have changed, you know, so they kind of made it more about kind of, you know, bioengineering and things like that.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, nuclear war and stuff. But that was, I mean, I agree. Yeah. Fantastic.
Great. So my number 12. Go for it.
So my number 11 is this science fiction. It's Never Let Me Go by Mark Romanek from 2010. So it's based on a Kazuo Ishiguro novel, screenplay by Alex Garland. And it's kind of an alternate reality, really, rather than set in the future. It's kind of set in a world where in the 1950s there's a medical breakthrough. And by the 1960s, people are regularly living to be over 100 years old. And the film is really about what the cost of that is. And I don't really want to say... what the film's about, because there's kind of a reveal about a third of the way through, and so I'm not going to say too much, but I mean, what I will say about it is just utterly heartbreaking. I mean, it is just. Have you seen it?
It really is.
Yeah,
I
it's
loved
just
it.
rending.
Yeah.
You kind of.
I
mean, it's so moving. I can't explain how profoundly moving it is to watch this film. You know, in a way that perhaps isn't entirely enjoyable. I was talking to a friend about it, and he said it's like watching puppies being crushed by a steamroller for 2 hours. And I kind of know what he means.
I do, yeah.
Because you do kind of feel like that at the end of it. It's just like, oh my God, that was sort of horrible but beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, that's the trick, isn't it?
And you know, and so was it Kerry Mulligan, Andrew Garfield, Keira Knightley, Charlotte Rampling, Sally Hawkins.
Yeah, Sally.
Andrea Riseborough, Domhnall Gleeson.
I didn't know Riseborough was. Yeah, I really like her. She's
small
great.
roles.
Oh, great.
It didn't do well at the box office.
No, it was more critically I mean, even the critics were a bit mixed on it.
Yeah.
Partly because of the book, I think. But
the book's very good.
I
as well.
loved it. I need to read the book.
There's not a lot of difference. It was very faithful to the book.
Yeah. Oh, great.
And yeah, I mean, just very. I mean, watch it because it's heartbreaking. Watch
it's one to look
box
out
of tissues
for.
and a stiff gin, but do it once in your life because it's just.
Never Let Me Go. Ray's number 11. My number 11. I've said quite a bit on this before. There's actually a new 4K DVD version of it out. RoboCop from 1987. So the second appearance from Dutch auteur Paul van Hoven on this list. I had Total Recall at number 40. Probably his best Hollywood film. Its brutal, uncompromising, nihilistic and sharply satirical vision of the future, crime and technology. It gets the future of cable TV and media bang on. The violence in the film is hard-hitting, but it's part of the morality of the film's message, so the violence sort of is important. Like Total Recall, it sort of works as an effective genre film whilst carrying a powerful message. Peter Weller is the ultimate RoboCop. There have been a couple of bad impersonators since, and his relationship with Nancy Allen's Anne Lewis is really touching. There's a great cast of supporting actors, including the late Twin Peaks actor Miguel Ferrer on fine sleazy form. And that theme music always gets my blood pumping. Once again, a great example of how to do a blockbuster, but with brains. RoboCop, fantastic, from 1987. My number 11.
I've only seen it once. I remember enjoying it. I found it was enjoyably kind of humorous. I like the humour.
Yeah, it's very satirical. Yeah, really good. So if you want to do your TV movie of the week quickly.
Okay, well, mine, this is dedicated to my mate Joe, who we used to love this film, watch it all the time. It is Night of the Demon, Jacques Tourneur.
Good.
I think it's 1957, I think. I haven't written it down. It's on Talking Pictures TV on Sunday morning, but really Saturday night, if you know what I mean. It's at 1:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the morning on Saturday night, Sunday morning. And that's Night of the Demon.
Okay, great choice. And I've gone for a slightly older pick and sort of a sort of an early slasher film, if you like, and that's Peeping Tom, the Michael Powell film. Yeah, good choice. Ray had it as well.
I had two films of the week. And
it's pretty much a masterpiece, and that is on Talking Pictures as well. It's on this Friday, the 20th, at 2200, so 10 p.m. Sorry, check it out.
So it's kind of Psycho with British accents, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, pretty much.
Upper class British accents.
Yeah, indeed.
So actually, what's interesting about those two films? They're both, I think, Tourneur and Michael Powell. They're both kind of cinematic kind of poets, aren't they?
They are.
But kind of slightly past their prime with both these films. Okay. I think were these their last two films, were they?
I think so. Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting. Okay. But actually,
they
kind
quite
of both
coincidence. Yeah.
But both really went out with good, great films.
Okay, that's the end of the show. That's our TV movie of the week. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great Christmas. We'll see you in the new year. Good night.